I think there's not enough people who want to get their hands dirty in areas that are just kind of yucky. What I mean getting your hands dirty is there can be courses that by the mere extension of trying to help, you're going to actually have people that are going to be against you. It's insane to me that we are in such a point in history with the truth decay that the Rand Corporation talked about in the 70s and 80s. Where we are now is that people don't trust the government, they don't trust the media, they don't trust spokespeople, they don't really trust very much of anything except for what they read or what they get on their mobile devices or their news feeds. And what's interesting is they've programmed those devices to feed them their own bias. So when you look at it
Yeah.
from that
Yeah.
perspective, these people are seeing the news they want to see, which is not really showing them the news. News is an event that has occurred and you report on it. You don't have an editorial. You don't put a bias into how you report it. That used to be news. But today you'd be hard pressed to find any news organization that actually does news. And it's because of that I wrote Killer Tech and the Drive to Save Humanity in order to figure out what is our relationship with technology? What is the
Yeah.
relationship of ownership in a digital world? Do we actually have ownership in a digital world? And should we have ownership in a digital world? I personally don't like game manufacturers telling me you don't own anything, get used to it. Well, put it this way to you. Some of us are willing to go into the Wild West, which I feel digital rights and where we are right now is the Wild West. And the sheriff has arrived in one of the towns, and that's me. And I say, no, we do have digital rights. We do have the ability in this world to actually give and secure rights to everyone who buys something digitally. And if you don't believe me, I can prove it. It's the whole basis for Bitcoin.
Mm. Yeah.
So if we can secure money at any denomination, so claim the Bitcoiners, because they want to take over the world, their technology, then why can't we secure digital rights of the same technology that Bitcoin does and secure the item that you bought digitally is yours? Makes sense, doesn't it?
It sounds logical to
Indeed.
me.
Yeah. Of course, a lot of people will say, well, that's impossible. Yeah, that's because it's a lot of work. But anything that we decide to do that affects our society in such an important way as what our memories are, I believe is worth fighting. Because what would society be like in the future if the stewards of that society, the government, the tech companies, just can erase your history or rearrange your history because they own your imagery, or they just throw all of your imagery into AI and say, we really didn't like their politics, so we're going to basically expunge everything in your imagery we don't like. We're just going to erase it. In fact, we're going to erase in your pictures people and things we don't like. You will have a history that we deem is permissible. Folks,
Yeah.
right now,
That's book burning.
that that's what we're talking about.
Yeah.
So to be really efficient with time, my vision is a future where our digital lives are respected and preserved. My mission right now is for every person to have a unique relationship with their technology, but not as a dependent of it, but as a co equal with it. That is super important. And today, we're in a path where we will be not equal to the technology we're allowing to take over in AI, artificial intelligence, and in social media, in the way we own things. And we are allowing corporations to own our identity, therefore our humanity. And we're allowing corporations to actually have a say on how we decide we want to store and archive our lives in our history and the things that we've watched. I'm going to give you a perfect example. When you rent a movie today, you would assume you're watching the same movie you watched as a kid. But there's plenty of movies right now, especially in the Disney archive, in which they have now changed. For example, Snow White's and the Seven Dwarfs. They have now started to surgically remove things and remove dialogue that they feel is offensive. It's offensive today, but in the context of history of when it was done and said, anything that was radical or anything that at that time was an important statement of that moment in history has now been erased for our preferences today. It is tragic to think that historians of the future will really have no idea what the past was really like because it's been whitewashed and changed. So George Orwell in 1984 said that we would get into doublespeak. We have. We've just slipped into it.
Oh
We
yeah.
don't even realize we've slipped into it. So one of my friends, Dr. Turley, Dr. Steve Turley of Turley Talks, and some of the audience might not like his politics. Please, let's keep the politics out of this. But he's a liberal arts teacher that comes out with a whole bunch of views, and YouTube doesn't like his views, so they demonetize him. And he ends up creating an alternative set of technologies, and now he is cancelable proof. You can't cancel him. His ideas now have been set free. So what YouTube did is by canceling his monetization, they actually forced people that believed in him to sponsor him. And he had over 6,000 people do that. And he ended up building a team of 30 people. And now he has been set free on this new journey. But what is
Wow.
really sad is that YouTube thinks they've won, but in fact, they've lost because that monetization could have been going into the coffers of YouTube. And the amount of money he just made, YouTube lost out on all that revenue. Why? Because they still are showing his videos on YouTube. Gentlemen, think about what I'm saying here. If it was so terrible and it had to be demonetized, why do you still allow access to those videos? These are the hypocrisies that unfortunately are everywhere in modern society. And again, the rights of the people. Again, it doesn't matter what your politics are. Some people really like Steve. Obviously, they're supporting him. Obviously, he's grown a little empire out of that support. And the fact of the matter is, I think he has a right, in my opinion, to have those views, irrespective if you disagree or agree with him. And you know what? You know what's so cool is that if you disagree with him and you were to go to Steve and have a chat with him, he might change his mind. He's that open.